we have done 104 episodes of this,
We have. It's a
covering
lot.
what I would deem very traditional nerdy topics.
Yeah, we've
And
had the odd outlier mentioned, but yeah, for the most part, we stuck to
so
pretty.
I did do a little bit of Googling. I'm just going to re-Google it now, but this is the definition of nerd.
Okay.
A person who is extremely enthusiastic and knowledgeable about a particular subject, especially one of specialist or niche interest.
Hmm.
So, as a general rule, when it comes to talking about nerdom, you do talk about like science fiction, fantasy,
Yeah.
board games, films, stuff like that.
Hmm.
But in reality, you can be a nerd about anything. What it really means is what is like your special interest? What is it that you just get?
Yeah. What's a topic or interest, like you say, that you know more than the average person on?
Exactly. Um, so I decided, bearing in mind we claim we are a nerd podcast, that we should allow the people to know what else we are a nerd for. So Horizontal, would you like to kick us off? I'm going to call you out if you miss out something that I think you should include.
Okay. Well, I'll kick things off with a couple that I think are pretty obvious, as we have mentioned briefly.
In passing.
Yeah, one being gaming. We've often talked
Yeah.
about gaming, although it's not like our main focus of the podcast. We are now introducing it once a month
Yeah.
with our friend Josh.
With Josh.
But yeah, I mean, gaming. I've played games. I don't even know how long, how many years. Probably since I was a
So
very
many
young
years.
boy. Since the original Crash Bandicoot days.
Do you remember Pong?
Not the original Pong. But another one that I've definitely talked about here and there in passing is D&D, probably. I've
Yeah.
played D&D on and off now for, I want to say, at least 10 years. Across different campaigns, DM'd some. And it's most part, me and my friends that I play with as a group, we try to do it weekly. Doesn't always happen, obviously, schedules and stuff, but it's like one of those things now where I will spend probably in my group the most time doing backstory and character description, uh, to then have my character die first within like 3 sessions. So that's always fun. But yeah, probably D&D is like quite a big one as well that I'm quite nerdy on.
Okay.
I'll leave my other ones. I'll let you go
Okay,
on
cool.
some of yours.
I think my biggest one, other than like what's been discussed, obviously, like while we don't directly cover comic books often, I'm obviously
Hmm.
in the grand scheme of comic book nerds, I'm very casual almost, but I am big into comics and I'm getting bigger and better for it.
Mhm.
I'm really enjoying comics. But I think the big one that would surprise more people is how much I enjoy sports. And it's like seen as quite uncommon for someone who enjoys like superheroes and
Yeah.
video games and all that stuff to enjoy sports. But I love sports. Olympics is like one of my favorite time every 4 years. I'm like, there are so many sports you don't get to watch that often on.
Mm.
And I think it
Yeah.
all comes from just a love of competition. I mean, you know, I'm competitive as fuck about everything. I love it. I
Same.
played cricket from like the age of 10 through until the pandemic.
Mm.
Pandemic was the only thing that knocked me off course, and I not got back into it. Football, cricket, American football, basketball. I have watched a bit of over the years, but time zones are not my friend at the minute. We're keeping up with basketball, especially with the amount of games played. But I just love sports. The other thing that I would say I'm an absolute nerd for is I don't know how you describe it, content creation. In the sense of like the amount of times I've sat there like, right, so I've been watching you this particular YouTuber I'd never heard of six days straight now. This is what I've learned. I'm such a nerd for like this is someone who's doing it big at the minute and they're going somewhere
Yeah.
or knowing what's going on in the streaming world. I just find it so fascinating. And despite the subscriber numbers on this channel and my channel, I feel like I do get content creation to an extent in a way that most people don't. Most people just turn on their YouTube, they watch their YouTube, and they go to
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I mean, I fuck it. Shall I out myself right now? I'm
Oh.
gonna go on my screen time right now and see how many hours in the last period I've spent on the YouTube Studio app.
Oh,
this is not going to be good.
see, I don't do that much on my phone. I try to do everything on desktop whenever I do anything.
Screen time. How do you see your apps? App limits? No, I don't. I mean, I probably need an app limit. Here we go.
Browsing all those analytics.
Most used, is that in what
TikTok.
time period? Last week.
Yes.
Right. So last week
Mm.
I averaged 5 hours 52 minutes of screen time a day. So that's what, 6 hours a day, about 42 hours. Just on my mobile, my third most used app was YouTube Studio.
Jeez.
The only two apps I used more than YouTube Studio on my phone last week were Twitter and TikTok. Even actual YouTube was lower on my phone than YouTube Studio.
Oh, I actually I barely watch YouTube on my phone.
Neither do I anymore, but like that just shows like the levels of what we're dealing with here.
Mm.
I will refresh that thing a million fucking times a day just in case. Yeah, so I think that's one that I don't know if people would realize just how much I love the numbers. I'll sit there and I'll see that we've had a week where everything's 10% better than normal, and I'm like, fuck yeah, that was a good week.
Yeah, I mean, I get all my information about how this podcast is doing through you.
we could hit 1 million subscribers and Hori would not know if I didn't say anything.
I genuinely wouldn't. I think back when I first ever started doing like content stuff, it's like, yeah, I would like watch numbers. And I don't. It's not even a thought anymore. Like I'll watch it for the first couple of hours. TikTok I'm bad for at the minute for checking. Because I'm regularly posting, but that'll soon. Like I stopped looking after a day or so.
It's really funny as well because a lot of content creators I respect like do not look at the numbers, don't worry about the numbers, just trust you're putting good content out. I'm like, no, fuck that. I want to see every view. I want to know the minute someone has viewed something.
Yeah, but there's some content creators, like I know Courage JD was like that. He figured all the analytics out and like got it down to like a science almost. So
yeah,
there's different ways of doing it.
And that's what I don't want to like. I don't want to become like, and I'm not saying we could do this anyway, but I don't want to become a Mr. Beast level nerd where I literally work out the algorithm down to a T and just make something that's going to suit the algorithm.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
But I am just like, if we can just change the pacing of stuff or the thumbnail or the title or whatever to get some more out of it, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, that's definitely what I would say I'm quite a nerd for. What about you? What else are you hiding away? Because there's a big one I'm waiting for.
I think I know which big one you're on about. So well, I'm gonna say photography because I think that's what you're getting at, and it's a weird one because I don't like. I guess I could be classed as a nerd for photography. I don't know
your
if
camera handy. Have you got your camera handy?
Yeah, it's
show them your camera.
I mean, it's actually a pretty basic DSLR.
Yeah, but in the modern world, when everyone has smartphones, the quality they do, if you're into photography now, you can do that of just an iPhone. So actually, just having spent the additional money on an actual camera that is just a camera, definitely puts you in the nerd category in the modern world.
It does. I would say that when I got this, iPhone and stuff cameras weren't as good as a DSLR.
Yeah, we get it, you're old.
But no, I mean, I guess I wouldn't jump to say that I'm nerdy at photography because I'm not like, oh, like you need to be for these conditions, you should do this shutter speed, this aperture, like all the different sets. Like I'm not. I just have. It started off as a hobby. I kind of realized, oh, I have a bit of a creative eye for it, and I just photograph stuff. And I'm like, huh, these photos look pretty good, and that's generally how I've always shot. Is if it looks good to me, I'm happy. I do like minimal editing. I don't over edit my photos. I've kind of got a vibe down that I like. But yeah, I have been doing photography for a long time.
See, here's the thing, you downplay that, and I'm not trying to simp here, although I simp for the boys constantly, and I'll never shy away from that fact. But is that not what like artists inherently do though. They find their style and they stick with it, especially like in photography and stuff. Like a lot of
Yeah.
like famous photographers, you can look at one of their pictures and know from the style of it that was Andy Warhol a photographer, or am I about to sound like an idiot? He
He
was a
was an
painter,
art.
wasn't he?
Yeah, but that's fine.
Fuck.
I know
You
what
know
you
what I mean?
mean.
There are photographers who have a style of
Same
photo, and just
thing.
because of the style of it, you're like, that was so and so.
Yeah.
So it makes complete sense that hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, like it's. I mean, I probably my brother-in-law. He does a lot of photography, and I always doubt. I'm like, I just post my. He's like, no, your photography's good. Like, he's like, you. Some of your photos are better than some of mine, and he takes it probably nerdier than me. He does now film photography, so like, I mean, he is full photography
Oh,
nerd with
so
that.
like proper negatives
Oh
and
yeah, he develops his own films and stuff at home.
nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Um.
That's another thing I would say I'm a nerd for. I'm a nerd for learning about little niches that I have no interest in
mm,
and will never ever use. But I'm just like, oh, a 115-minute videos on how to develop film or how to grow a particular plant. Yes, I'll have that. Thank you.
That's like me with like some like random creative things. I'll just be like, huh. There's like a period where I watched like this leather working YouTuber for like a month straight, and I was like, I really want to do this now. And then like a month later, I'm like, I have no interest in leather working anymore. But
I think that's one thing I've got good at though. Like I'll know that I'm never going to do it, but I still want to know. I'm like,
I
I
get you.
want to understand how it works. Um,
I would say another thing as well. It's sort of on your realm of sport. I'm not that. I for the longest time I was not at all into sport. Although maybe basketball for a period during high school because I used to play it. But I would say for a long period of time I didn't care. Then I got into American football a bit from my brother-in-law. Then it was, but I've kind of fallen off. I follow that loosely now. But I would say definitely more recently over the last couple of years as I got back into like F1 especially, and kind of always have been a fan of cars. That's kind of my like other thing outside of the normal
you're a
nerdy
big
stuff.
JDM fan, aren't you?
I do love a JDM car. I would love to just go to Tokyo and essentially live out Tokyo Drift and go to all the car meets that do
Yeah, no,
actually happen.
that'd be fun.
But yeah, I'm very much do enjoy my cars. Have got much more into F1, which I used to watch as a kid with my dad. So it's like it's been fun getting back into it again.
That's the one. That is the one sport I can't even like be semi
It's
interested in.
I feel
Like I'm
like
not a
some
big fan
people.
of rugby, but when like the Rugby World Cup or England's playing in a big game, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just gonna watch it. I'm gonna have a great. I don't know what I'm shouting about, but I'll shout about it. I'm gonna have a great time. F1, I just don't really get it. Like, I obviously like you and the rest of the boys in Discord really enjoy it. So like by osmosis, I pick up a fair bit, and I like know roughly what's going on. But at the same time, it feels a lot of the time just like the best car wins. The driver doesn't matter as much as I would like them to. And I don't know if that's just because I haven't given enough time to it, but at times that's what it feels like. So I'm just like, feels like scale electrics.
I would definitely say the driver definitely does play a decent enough part. I would say in the last couple of years, just the way things have gone and the way the sport and money, definitely the team that like Red Bull had an incredible car, had just got like clicked with the design, and it meant they were just. It was a bit of a boring year
Untouchable.
last year because it was just Max won basically every race. But then the interesting stuff is like everyone I feel like last year just was like, we'll just ignore first place and we'll just focus on everything else because then it's interesting. Because you have like good drivers in not necessarily the best car. So then you get like good midfield fights. Like the midfield's been a lot more interesting recently. But yeah, the years ago, I'd say when I was younger, it was a lot more like
Driver heavy.
yeah, or you get like a random rogue team and just like create an absolute banger of a car, and people are like, "What the fuck? Why are they suddenly beating everyone?" But things have definitely closed in a bit now. So, but I do get it. Some people like it's just cars going around in a circle. I think if you're not in like really into cars, it's harder to like understand motorsport.
Oh, absolutely. Because like the big thing I always love about football, American football, basketball, cricket, whatever, is they're team sports,
Mm,
but then individual moments of just magic. Like some of Ben Stokes' catches, or like Maradona or a Messi solo goal, a stunning catch in the NFL, a nuts dunk in the NBA.
mm-hmm.
They are highlight reel moments that become iconic,
Yeah.
and like you see them for years and years and years. Like their helmet catch in the Super Bowl against the
Mm-hmm.
Patriots. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just feel like you don't get stuff like that in motorsports as much because the moments don't physically look as impressive because it's not person centric, it's car centric.
I get you. There's definitely
So an
some
overtake
overtake
can be like
moments.
crazy impressive, but
Mm-hmm.
because it isn't a physical aspect of a person going up over another man and grabbing something, or just like physically imposing themselves in the same way, it's not as good a picture.
Do you know what I need to get you to watch that came out the other day? Red Bull put out a video where they helped develop the world's fastest drone so it could keep up with an F1 car.
I think I saw that trending on Twitter.
And I would watch it because it's probably the first time where you can actually, like, somewhat on camera get an understanding of how fast they are driving around those tracks. And I feel like once you understand that perspective, and then you see like 3 cars throwing it into a corner to overtake, you're like, oh, you're doing that without just plowing into the side of them. Now I understand.
Yeah.
I think a good one though that does motorsport that's probably better for moments is like rally. Like I
Yeah,
used to,
rally's cool as fuck.
I've gonna try and watch them again this year because I haven't watched it for years. My dad used to watch it, and it's like rally. I think is just a different breed, and you can like that. You get an understanding of like, oh shit, they are like, how are they driving this?
Yeah, I think that's quite like natural as well because like, also on the F1, apart from on the street circuits, which are still
Mm,
trackified, on
yeah,
the tracks you're like you can't really you've never driven on a track, so you don't get it.
no, yeah,
Rally cars, we've driven through dingy roads in the middle
yeah.
of nowhere in England.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can imagine this fucker trying to do it at
Like
130 miles an hour with his passenger just shouting directions at him.
just shouting numbers and left, right, yeah,
Like we get that if we try to do that, we die
yeah.
very quickly.
So yeah, motorsport is definitely something I very much enjoy. I have one more recency bias
Oh,
one,
go on.
which is Gundam. I've talked
Yeah,
about it a
you're big
couple of
on the Gundam at
weeks.
the minute.
I literally watched like 2 seasons, and then I literally went to, okay, let's look at the Gundam timeline.
No, not the timeline.
Oh, you think like MCU timeline is a mess sometimes? Gundam timeline, the visual is like about 8 lines going diagonal,
Nice.
and I'm like, okay, where's the series I just watched? How do these and then what I've learned is there is an official main timeline. All the shows are like official shows, but they're essentially the easiest way I've got my head around it is they are essentially multiverses. They're alternate
Nice.
universes. So there's like,
These are all the universes where Gundams happened. This is how it happened in that universe.
yeah, there's the main timeline, and then a lot of the show, like a couple of the shows I've watched, are they literally are the only thing on their timeline because it's like they've got their own flavor. So it's like essentially an alternate universe, which actually I quite like. So now I'm diving down the rabbit hole of like,
See,
what other ones are there?
in 2024 though, with how popular multiverse projects are, that might mean there's a multiverse Gundam project coming your way, and all your favorite Gundams are going to fight each other.
Oh, I don't know about that. I feel like that might cause the fans would maybe be like,
Just lose their mind.
yeah, there'd be some arguing about which Gundam should win and which shouldn't. But yeah, definitely that, and I guess a bit of anime. I've been getting into anime, but I wouldn't class myself as an anime nerd at all yet. Too early.
No, you haven't started going, ooh, senpai noticed me, so I think we're good.
Well, I haven't started watching like One Piece or something.
Isn't that like 1,000,000 episodes?
Yeah, and it's only just started. Like he's that's the prologue is just finished, and now he's getting into.
Oh, it's just I respect it so much, but I have so many things I enjoy. I don't have the time.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
I've got stuff like Shogun, which is just come out on Disney Plus, which is apparently amazing that
Yes.
I want to watch. And me and Jenna are trying this new thing where we don't binge it stuff anymore.
Oh, I
Because
can't.
what I noticed was I've got on my high horse a couple of times on here about how Netflix has ruined streaming by making stuff binge worthy because it stops stuff lasting as long, so people watch it all then forget about it.
You binge
So,
stuff.
and I was like, okay, but I'm being a hypocrite because I'm just falling for the trap.
Yep.
So, like, we didn't watch Reacher season 2 when it came out,
Hmm.
and by the time we were ready to watch it, all the episodes were out. But I went, no, we're not going to binge it. We're going to watch one episode a week.
I can't. I have to binge. I can't.
No,
I'm so bad for it.
I'm fighting back. I'm keeping my brain used to having to wait for things. If I get too used to not having to wait for things, I'm fucked.
The hardest thing, like speaking of binging and somewhat still on anime, is like I was very late to getting to watch Attack on Titan, so I had a lot of people had to wait like more. I think a couple of years between seasons at one point. Didn't have any of that issue. I binged everything literally right up to the final season. And then I got to watch that weekly. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't know what everyone's problem was.
That was the meme after after Endgame, wasn't it? It was like
Mm.
when I let my kids watch the MCU, they're gonna have to wait a year after watching Infinity War before I let them watch Endgame.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to wait so they know what it felt like.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
weight at the end of Infinity War loses a lot if like you just go right on to the next one and like you see what happens 2 hours later.
Yeah, there is situations where binging through stuff is not as great for the
It
impact of the
ruins
story.
the tone. Yeah, exactly. I would say the last thing I'm a nerd for, and this is gonna sound so look at me, I'm great, and I know I hate it when I come across like that. It makes me feel sick. I would like to say I'm a huge nerd for trying my best because I know I'm not great at it sometimes. Of trying to help my friends do something they want to do. Like when you and Josh get lazy with stuff or fall off staying on top of stuff, I like to think I'm one of the best for like, no, come on, lock the fucking you've got this.
Can I just make a point?
Go on.
For someone to fall off from doing something, they would have to start doing something. Josh.
If Josh doesn't start editing that video, soon I'm gonna turn up at his house with a knife.
Jeez. In the game, people.
Just gonna sit there rubbing the knife against my face while I watch him edit, just like, get it done.
Nah, you don't lie. You are good for reminding us and getting on us for keeping on top of things.
You know what it is? It's a really morbid way to look at it. But I'm like, like you have them thoughts late at night. This is why I need to start going to bed earlier. Where you're like, what am I going to be remembered for? A long time ago, I was like, I would just like to be remembered as a good friend. So I'm like, fuck it. I will be the annoying bastard if it means that at the end they look back and they're like, he did his best to keep an eye on us and look after us. And it's a big thing I'm trying to work on this year as well. Like keeping contact with people who matter because I'm terrible for it. You can just get so locked into your own stuff when you're doing it. And it's so easy to sit there and make excuses for yourself. Like, oh, well, on Monday I'm catching up on content, and on Tuesday and Wednesday I'm streaming, on Thursday I've got the podcast, and then it's editing all weekend. It's like, yeah, but what about the people you care about? So I'm like, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
It's rough.
It
but we move.
is.